that's like I said, parents just want the most. And you'll find a lot of time in the autism community, especially, is they're willing to pretty much do almost anything to just try to get to the basics. We just want our children, most of us, when you look at it, most of us will always just tell you, we want them to be as functional and independent as possible. Yep. That's what I say every time. I don't care if he's a rocket scientist, and I don't care if he has to live with me the rest of his life. I just want him to be as functional and independent as possible in his life, to feel like he has as much control over his life.
And happy.
Yeah. And be able to communicate in the world that we live in today.
All right, everyone. The Dr. Alex Show is brought to you by Shed Light Cold Lasers. And Shed Light Cold Lasers has been a game changer for us at HML professionally and personally at home. Personally, on a personal note, I had a very bad bout of vertigo. And I got probably 85% there by going to a few different functional neurologists over the years to help me out with it. Then I bought this. And this is a game changer because, one, it's portable. That means I can take it to the office, use it on patients all day, make sure it stays charged, come on home, and then throw it in my pocket and use that home. And this is what cleared up my vertigo. Now, professionally, the way it's been the game changer for us in the office is that it has cut our results down by 50%. This can get used on just about anything, any disease disorder that you can think of, it can pretty much get used on. Now, as far as how it has helped us out, it's cut everything down by 50% on our times. So when we're working with our kids with special needs, when we're working with our chronic neurological disorders, autoimmune diseases, to get those people into a good point that they're happy and that we're happy, times have been cut by 50%. You will definitely want to go check out shedlightcoldlasers.com or email Griswold at shedlightinformation@gmail.com, 518-338-6658.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Dr. Alex Show. And we have a new setup, if you can't see. And what I want to tell everyone real quick is our studio is in the old vault of one of the old post offices here in Lee's Summit, Missouri. And what you're looking at is one of the back walls. And the owner of this space, it's a shared working space, has all these cool radios. So now everyone gets to see them more. So first, we're the first people running this setup. So we're stoked. And today we got a fun guest, or I think it's me a fun guest. His name is Justin Long. And I'm going to let him open up by telling his story. Because not only is his entire family now patients, but Justin is a local business owner who owns an ABA clinic, or Applied Behavioral Analysis clinic, right here in town. And we are finding ourselves working pretty well together to start things off. So what I want to do is just kind of pass it to you, sir. And why don't you kind of start with your story with you and your wife and your boy?
Okay. So we'll see. There's times when I get a little teared up about it, but we'll go through that.
Yeah, been there,
right? So we are local to Missouri. Me and my wife grew up in Lake of the Ozarks area. We both have transplanted over the years to get to Kansas City. Our youngest child was 2.5 to 3 years old. We had noticed a lot of milestones not being hit. We had the doctors who were like, oh, we'll grow out of it. And we were kind of like, oh, I think there's something else going on. We have 2 older children with no issues. So we were like, no, we're not to where we should be. We finally got through the Children's Mercy wait list, which is absolutely ridiculous. And every parent would know that. Mm-hmm. Got the diagnosis of autism, severe, a moderate to severe.
And just for some context, how old was he on that? I don't recall.
So at that time, it would have been close to 3 years old by the time we actually got the diagnosis. Okay, we were almost 3 years old.
Which is about typical.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you start to see it around 2. By the time you're getting through the 6-month, 8-month wait list, you're going to be close to 3. We did get our confirmation from that. So then we began the daunting task of looking through the paperwork. So if you've ever been to any of the local hospitals for these kind of things, they give you a 40-page packet, and they're like, this is everything you should know.
Jeez.
But they don't actually explain everything.
Sit
But it
down.
will tell you in there to go see OT, go see speech, and then it'll tell you in the very end to go see ABA or applied behavioral analysis. So we got to looking, we got to searching. One thing I would tell everybody is don't search Google about ABA. Do not learn from YouTube from the 80s. It is completely different from today's standards.
Yes, it is.
So-
It is definitely grown and matured in a
Yes.
great way.
And there's a lot of ethics now that were not there in place back then. But it is that, well, what do I do now? So we slowly started getting everything. Children's Mercy can do OT, they can do speech, they can do physical therapy. One thing they can't do is ABA. So you have to find a provider.
I guess I never thought about that.
Mm.
I've never paid attention to that. Why?
I couldn't answer that question. I would say a lot of it has to do with probably staffing and resources available to them, and then the space needed for them.
Okay.
As we get on, you'll realize, so we have a clinic, obviously, as you stated before, we're at about 5,000 square feet in our clinic and can hold up to approximately 16 to 20 full-time clients. So when you look at it that way, they'd have to have a much bigger facility to be able to hold. And then you have to hire everyone for that. You have to have your BCBAs, your RBTs, and we'll go through all those definitions. But I think that's why they don't get
Okay.
into that side. And I think it's because there's the controversy in that side. So ABA has always had the controversy. Like I said, don't Google it. Don't look in the 80s. There was a lot of bad things that happened when it first started, as anything does when it
Yes.
first starts.
Absolutely.
then-
Same for our profession.
Right? Then you
Get your
get
Google PhD in chiropractic, you're going to find nightmares.
Exactly. So we began the task of finding a company. We found one based out of Kansas City. Then all of COVID. So we got the diagnosis right before COVID hit
Mhm.
in 2020. Then we found what at that time then a lot of clinics were closing or doctors weren't seeing you. There was a lot of issues there. So we already had that uphill mountain right on the backside of getting the diagnosis.
Jeez.
We found a clinic that would do actually in-home, and that was pretty much what all of them were moving to, so that they didn't have all the in-clinic issues that they thought they may have because nobody knew anything.
Paying for a brick and mortar space.
Yeah, and then they were like, well, I don't want to bring it in here because if it comes in here, then everybody could be infected.
Sure.
But if somebody gets infected in a home, it may be only one staff member.
Yeah.
So that was kind of their thought, which we agreed with at the time. We began services. Anybody who would know my wife knows that. So the backstory to us too is at the time I was working for the federal prison. I was a correctional officer for them. My wife is a nurse. She is currently still a nurse at the VA.
Mhm.
Is a nurse manager over there. So we were working opposite shifts to be able to make the in-home process work. So I would be home during the morning. She'd be home in the evening times for the therapy.
Holy cow.
2 different therapists a day, 8 hours a day, as much as we could get.
Jeez.
But we soon found out, as you slowly grow into ABA, is a lot of places have staffing issues, especially when it comes to their RBTs, which is the registered behavior technician. That's the low entry level, but they're the ones that do all the one-on-one. They're
the boots on the ground.
boots on the ground for
Okay.
everything. So it's not always the highest paid job. It's an entry level job. There is certification for it through the state. So they have to take a 40-hour course. They get certified. They take the exams. It's a very, again, new ethical way of doing things to make sure everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
And then they're overseen by what's called a BCBA. That's a board certified behavioral analyst. They're the ones that go get the nice master's degree in college or doctorate. They do all the assessments on the children. They set up the plan goals with the parents. I'll put in quotes. Most of them get
Sure.
parent input. Then the RBT implements the goals.
Yep.
And then the BCBA has hours that they're going to monitor and make sure that the goals are being met, stuff's being done. Depending on the company, depends on what they're using for their products or their software and how they collect that data. So behavioral analysis in itself is analyzing behavior.
Yep.
So we are there to analyze behavior, find out why behavior happens, and then modify behavior. Now we can do that in a variety of ways. So depending on the behavior, if it's bad behavior, good behavior, indifferent behavior, sometimes a parent's view of one behavior and a parent's view of another behavior are two different things. So that's all things that we work with. As we saw, we had issues. So staff wasn't always showing up. There wasn't always an RBT available. There wasn't always staff, the BCBAs coming in to check and do our parent trainings for those hours every week. So we started to see issues almost immediately, but we're new to everything. We don't know. This must be the norm.
Sure.
And so as we grew, then with that company, we developed over the next year, we had a lot of issues, up and down issues. So then there was the blame game of why this isn't happening. Why isn't that happening? We looked for outside resources to also fill up time when they didn't have time. And then that became an issue. Well, you're not giving us time. And we're like, well, you didn't have time available. So back and forth all the time, volatile relationship. We had some great staff that would come in. They were absolutely, most of them were almost always amazing, always there, always wanted to care about the children. But you just had the administration part of it that was always lacking. And we finally, through a lot of trial and error, we looked at it, and finally one day we had gotten frustrated enough that we said, I think we can do this ourselves. Maybe we can do this better. And so me, being me, at that time, I was also in my real estate. So I was already a real estate agent at the time with the prison. And I was like, I think we can just do this. We already know business. We know how to run a business. Let's just see what we can do. And so I started the task of searching. I found Success on the Spectrum. It's a franchise. Started out of Houston, Texas. Nicole Daher started it, founded it, and it was all started on her child at the time with autism was kicked out of a clinic because she's too old. So,
did her child?
Yeah. So her child is 10 at the time, and that was too old for the clinic.
Come on.
Exactly. Because it fades away at 10 years old. You just don't see autism anymore after 10. So that was her thought was, what? Why?
Right.
Why? We're making strides. Why are we stopping?
Yeah.
And so they were full-time in ABA. They were not using the school system at all. In the state of Texas, you do not have to go to school. And ABA actually can fill in for school.
No kidding.
In the state of Texas. In the state of Missouri, you do not have to send your child to school. They won't send the police on you.
Yeah.
But we don't fill in for school.
Yeah.
So if you choose not to go to any form of school, then obviously you're not going to graduate. With some of our clients, though, they use homeschooling and other forms, part-time schooling. Some of the schools will let you go half a day and half a day to us because we kind of try to work together.
Yeah.
Like, let us deal with the behaviors that you don't want to in school. But back to her, she then looked at, well, maybe we can do this. So her story is ours 5 years before us. Her and her husband were like, let's just do this. So they formed a clinic. She formed it based on parent-led. We're very parent-led. We're very parents know the best about their children.
Yeah.
And we try to lead with the parent giving us as much as possible. Her first clinic soon filled. So she looked at opening a second clinic because is the desire as a parent, we also want to help every other kid.
Yeah.
We don't just look at ours and be like, I only want to help mine. We see all of them on the spectrum and we're like, as many as I can do.
Right.
So she opened the second one. That soon filled up, looking for a third. At that time, though, it's kind of hard to run 3 clinics efficiently. So that's when the idea of a franchise came out. She can still have the mold, but she doesn't have to be there.
Yeah.
So she can still keep the idea and the path moving, but not have to be physically there.
Yep.
We are currently the 25th clinic. We're the only one in the Midwest, right dead center. Like I said, the only one in Missouri. Then, of course, we're the only one in the Midwest. When I found them, I talked to their franchise management. Joe was like, wow, you are literally Nicole 4 years ago.
Right.
So he's like, you got to talk to her. Well, Amelia was still on the fence. My wife, I don't know. She's the money person where I'm like, it'll be fine. Everything works out.
She seems like such a driver. It's funny.
Yeah.
I can't see her being on the fence, but
she was just with well, what are we going to do with this? And how much money are we really going to put out? And there's a lot of figures that go into
Okay,
that
yeah.
with business.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's just take the dive. So she finally, another incident happened with the company we were at. And she finally said, I think I need to talk to Joe. And I immediately am like calling this guy.
Yep.
Hey, I need a meeting like right now. You got to talk because we don't want this to fade. Let's just get her.
Yep.
She's already like leaning over the fence. Let's get her just to fall over.
Get
So
it while it's hot.
she then immediately then we talked to Nicole, the owner. Nicole talks to every single franchise before she approves anyone before they'll ever even be allowed
That's how it
to
should
start a
be.
franchise.
Yep.
So she went through an entire interview with us. We went through multiples, just what our vision was, where we were at, what we wanted out of it, all those things. Because she doesn't want just some run of the mill thing.
Yep.
Because it reflects to her ultimately.
Yep.
So went through all that, started up, signed the franchise, started all the loans, started all the money process. At the time, I'm a commercial real estate agent, so I just went starting to look for myself then. We found a couple of different places. One we started with, and then a lot of the construction stuff didn't work out, so we switched. We're currently on Colburn Road, right next to Kia,
Mhm.
and across the road from Toyota. We're the second story. Like I said, it's 5,000 square feet. We have close to 20 rooms in the entire facility, to include a classroom, art room, social room, gym / playroom, multiple individual rooms in for each of the kids. Some kids double just because they're half days, like I was saying before with the school. We have morning kids and we have afternoon kids, so they kind of share a room.
Sure.
So I can't say every room is individual because they're individual at the time that they're using it.
Yeah.
Then once we found the space, Nicole approved it. She liked what we were doing. We did the designing, construction starts. Then we just start the whole process. So everything started, all the business decisions, all the rest of the stuff has got to come ahead. It took us about a year. We officially opened April 8th was our opening night, and officially started taking clients on April 11th of this year.
Okay, I was about to say
So,
it was 2020.
2022. So we started the process in 2021 at about June of 2021.
Okay.
And we finally opened the doors in April of 2022.
Jeez.
And it has been an amazing. So I transferred obviously out of the prison system. Now I run the clinic full time as the office manager. My wife is the CEO. Like I said, though, she hasn't left nursing. She has that great desire in nursing, so she still puts in the time over at the VA.
Yeah.
But I'm there full time, and it's absolutely amazing. I would have never thought how great it could be to like work with children every day. Now we worked with my own son, obviously, but then to see all the other kids do the same things, the growing steps, the everything that's going on. And then here we are, August almost. And then I guess what would that have been? I guess she met Lauren back in April though.
It was about
March or April.
It was about March or April of this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So we partnership with OT clinics and speech therapists. We actually have some speech therapists that come in the clinic. We have OT that comes in the clinic, and we also send them down to an OT clinic that's also in the same building. So it works out great in that collaboration. And then Lauren
Mhm.
and Amelia met, and then she was like, "Oh, you can't imagine what we do over here." And it was weird because here we had lived this life for 3 years with autism, or almost 3 years with autism. It had never even heard of functional neurology, which we talked about. I was like, that isn't on the packet of paperwork they give me from Children's Mercy.
No.
And so I was like, what? They do what? And so then, like you said, we are patients, so we come for chiropractic care. And then Lincoln, our son, is about to start with you and Lauren for the neurology side of it.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely exciting.
Yep.
And I have a multitude of parents who are like ecstatic to start the same process.
Right.
Because we, as you said on the show before, you have the tree approach, the roots all the way up.
Mhm.
Well, then ABA is pretty much the leaves and the branches down.
Yeah.
Is how we function. So we're working on behavior, we're working on emotion, where we lack some of the other. We don't really get away from primitive reflexes or gross motor or fine. We manipulate it in.
Yeah.
But we're more concerned with you've got to manipulate the behavior to get them to do other things.
Yeah, because they have to function at some level.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a mild, moderate, severe, or whatever or however you want to label it, class 1, 2, 3, or however you want to put it, because you eventually have to have the child to go to the bathroom, maybe get their own water, maybe get their own food.
Then request it, the language barriers.
The language barrier, exactly. Otherwise, you're just
Yeah, so
You're
we
up against
work
all
as
the
much as we can
restrictions.
in language. We take as much from specialists.
Yeah.
But then this is a whole new avenue that we're extremely excited about, because we think what we see, and even in Lincoln, is we have the top-down approach. And then we also, like I said, sprinkle in the OT and the speech and everything else we can. And, but I know there's gaps.
Mhm.
And listening to your podcast and then us just talking in the office randomly when I come in, we were like, I think we can fill these gaps. So that was like the whole new,
Yep.
ooh, let's see what we can do together. Because you haven't really done it together with anyone, and neither had we. We were like, no, this is a whole new approach.
No, we haven't. Plenty of kids have come in and they've been through ABA.
Mhm.
Trying to think of the last time we had a kid come through who was actively doing ABA. I can't recall,
And that's hard.
because it's hard, because it's a scheduling thing.
It is. And so with us, we'd said, we'll get them there. We'll be there for you.
Right.
Which is what we do for all of ours. We want to be there as much as possible. We take notes for the parents. Then we do whatever's requested. Because we're not OT, speech, or functional neurologists. We're ABA providers.
Mhm.
We know behavior.
Yep.
But we don't always know the best way of implementing how to talk, or the best way of how to write, or the best way to neurology, even just the study of that in itself. We know why behaviors happen, but I can't tell you on an actual scientific level all the way to the bottom why the brain does what it does.
Mhm.
So it's kind of neat to look at your way of looking at it and then our way of coming in. So we're really excited.
Oh, I'm stoked.
Yeah, it's about to be a whole new experience for us to be able to do what we're about to do. So
Yep, I'm pumped.
even Nicole, I was on a conference call with Nicole yesterday, and she was ecstatic that we're doing this. She's like, you're going into a whole new realm that the whole franchise hasn't ever ventured into.
That's awesome.
So, and I was like, well, we just want the most for our children.
Well, and it's, I can't say enough about that, because as functional neurologists, with what we do, to a degree, I'll admit, we start stepping on other professionals' toes. We're working on primitive reflexes and gross motor skills and fine motor skills. And then at HML, that's generally where we stop. But PTs and OTs can do that. However, in my humble opinion, there are better ways of doing things. And every patient that comes in is there for a reason. And it's because they had already seen them. And the system got them so far, did good, but there's more to be had.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because there's new ways of applying things. There's new research, there's new understanding. There's things that we do in office as functional neurologists the information has only been out for 6 months, which means it's not going to reach a textbook for another 8 years.
Right.
So I can't speak enough about how you guys are like, let's just get everyone involved and let's do everything. And the fact that Nicole, as she watches this, I greatly appreciate the fact that she's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And you're not just poo-pooing things.
No, and I will say that about her. She has always been extremely supportive as a franchise owner. And she loves us. So the whole Midwest, I will tell you, she's still partial to Texas, if anybody worries about it. But, and I remind her that Missouri is much better. And that we stole Patrick Mahomes. So
Yep.
I kind of always take a
Cowboys
ding
haven't-
at her, but she
Cowboys haven't
has,
won in a while.
right? Or Houston.
Or
I mean, they're
Houston.
based out of Houston.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, we're better, right? So, but she is absolutely fabulous. She, like our conference call yesterday, when we started talking about other things, I was like, we're starting this next week. And we hadn't even talked about the podcast because I didn't talk to you that until I came in later to see you. But she was like, no way. I was like, yeah, we're going to do this. They don't mind us being in the office. We're going to bring the RBTs and the BCBA. The BCBA will be there like the first. Zach will come in and Amber are 2 BCBAs. Zach is over Lincoln's case. So Zach will come in on the first appointment and then he'll come at the end.
Cool.
And that's kind of how he wants, like we talked to him about it, because it was like he can start and he can help you with any like data you need straight out of what we've done with Lincoln lately.
Cool.
And then he's able to mark a milestone at the end based on what the RBTs are marking.
Mhm.
And he can show you the data then too, the data that we've collected over such amount of time.
That's going to be so cool.
So he can be like, well, by adding this, we got this much further in this.
Yeah.
Because we're only changing one thing right now with Lincoln. So, well,
Right.
I say one thing, but we're changing a lot.
Yeah.
But we're only adding one aspect in.
Yes.
But it does change a lot. I mean, between everything you've got us
Yep.
doing. So, and then I have a bunch of parents who are like waiting for this like
Yep.
explosion to happen out of my child.
It's
But
going to be cool.
which is, that's like I said, parents just want the most. And you'll find a lot of time in the autism community, especially, is they're willing to pretty much do almost anything to just try to get to the basics. We just want our children, most of us, when you look at it, most of us will always just tell you, we want them to be as functional and independent as possible.
Yep.
That's what I say every time. I don't care if he's a rocket scientist, and I don't care if he has to live with me the rest of his life. I just want him to be as functional and independent as possible in his life, to feel like he has as much control over his life.
And happy.
Yeah. And be able to communicate in the world that
Yep.
we live in today. So
Yeah. The cool thing, and I think how it's going to happen just based on what I know about Lincoln and everything he does now, is for everyone that's listening and watching, Lincoln has been obviously intensely been getting ABA in their clinic,
Mhm.
success on the spectrum here at Lee's Summit. And then we're going to run them through a functional neurology program doing 3 to 4 visits a day
Mhm.
is I think what we booked.
Yep.
Maybe even 5, probably 4. I think just 4. Either way,
yeah, it's 3 hours total. So
in the neurology world, the research, this is something I kind of spoke of earlier, a better way of doing things. The research shows that if you give it the brain what it wants, you have a certain time window that if you give it to it again and again and again without fatiguing it, your results are exponential. So if you do, let's say traditionally you go and you see PT, OT, or even a functional neurologist for your child's care 2 or 3 times a week, that's great. But if we do 3 visits a day, our experience shows that that's more like 6 visits over the course of 2 weeks. So the results can almost double. If not, you have a 50% improvement because of how the brain responds to that repeated therapy. And he's going to get ABA on top of what we're doing. And essentially, you can imagine they're working on the top of the tree with the leaves. We're working on the roots, and then things are going to start meeting in the middle. So one of 2 things are going to happen. One's going to be really exciting, which regardless, he's going to improve.
of
And
course.
He'll go through a point where you probably won't see anything. And then after the program's done with us, he'll start to synchronize, one of the last steps of development, and then you'll start seeing the results. Or like I had mentioned, which we could get him through and then he could tank because he's gonna hit milestones.
Yep.
And then if that happens, then through heck or high water, we say get him back in so we can keep running him through, and then we'll get him back out. Either way, he's gonna end up on top, and
Yeah, exactly.
it should be exponentially different. And what I want to do, like I always say, there's a secret goal of mine.
Right. Yeah.
Like my over the top secret goal is to allow your boy to enter school next year.
Yeah. We decided not to send him to kindergarten this year.
Yeah, I guess we should kind of tap on that.
We did decide that. We, I guess I could put it lightly, that we believe in our mind right now and what we see in the data that we have, scientific with ABA, that we can do more for him in the next year than what the kindergarten can provide right now.
Sure.
Just based on their goals of what they had set and the goals that we have set.
Sure.
Theirs were not to the same level as ours. We shoot a lot higher. And so there's just a lot. School systems can't provide everything. Maybe one day the public school system will let RBTs and ABA companies still attend with the children. Currently, right now, the only ones that do are private schools. Mostly, again,
Which is
driven by money.
smart. Yeah.
They do it because then they don't have to hire the para or anybody else to be with the child.
But it's smart
The
because they're
parents
having,
are already sending somebody to be there. And
Yeah.
we're more trained. I've already told you the state makes them go through extensive training. They have to go through the 40-hour course. There's a pre-exam.
Yep.
Then they have to go through clinical time with the BCBAs to get all their stuff checked off. It's all sent off to the BCB. Then they review all of the file. Then they give their certificate number to be able to send them to actually sit for the full exam.
Mhm.
And then they have to meet their credentialing education hours every year with the BCBAs and other outside training entities that we do.
Which is far more than Parents.
What we do with the parent. Yeah. It's so I haven't understood yet. I know there's some reasons, but they're not proven reasons, they're my opinion. So I'll keep those to me. But
Yeah.
I eventually hope that yes, the public school system will wake up to that and say, hey, they can provide. If the parent's willing to pay for it, why don't we just do it and have this collaboration?
Yeah.
Because ultimately we want as much collaboration we can with everybody.
Yep.
Just like your company or any of our OT clients or speech or any of those, we want to do the most for everybody.
Yeah. For the parents listening, there's probably the parent that is new to
Mhm.
being in the world of autism, and then the parents
Oh.
that are veterans. The ones that are veterans are like, yep, and they know exactly what they're talking about with the school. The new ones are like, oh, okay, great. And the best, probably the best worst answer is when it comes to schools, especially our local district, there's nothing wrong with it. It really comes down to funding,
Mhm.
and then in my opinion, sometimes liability,
And implementation.
and then implementation.
Yeah. Who's going to implement all of these goals?
So there's a lot of stuff to work through,
Mhm.
but if they follow that model, because there's surrounding private schools where our patients go to, which they have an ABA that goes with them all day.
Exactly. Yep. We're able
Um,
to send our RBTs into the private schools.
Unbelievable,
Mm-hmm.
because then the RBT or the BCBA,
Which is
Will-
both at times. Yeah.
yeah, which could be both, will completely be with the child all day long, give us input,
Mm-hmm.
give the school input, and the child, we have yet to see a child not just astronomically succeed.
I actually just talked to a parent who has a 5th grader, and she's looking at private school for that reason. She
if
came
you-
to us to ask what was the best opinion.
If the school can
And
do it, do
I
it.
said I would go with a private school. If
Yeah.
you want him to be in a school setting, which he's very high functioning and does fine academically, but he has behaviors and social issues that push him in a different realm inside the school and make him kind of an outcast to other students at that age.
Yep.
Because we're talking about 10 and 11-year-olds now. So now they're starting to develop,
Hormones and
yeah.
peer pressure and
and so
Kids
she's
say
seeing
dumb
that
things.
more, and I'm like, you should push for private school. If you can do private school, I would do it.
Yeah. Because
yes, we can be with him at all times.
Yeah.
If that's what you want. And so she's looking in that process now. We're getting her in the clinic. Which a backstory, I already knew this kid way previously before he was even diagnosed. I was a soccer coach for him. So it was odd that it's come back full circle that here I am again in the capacity
Sure.
with this child that I didn't, but we're looking at things that we're always trying to be the most for the parent. And that's what we want. We ultimately always want to provide as much as we can for all of our parents.
Yep.
So we try to get these outside resources. We try to do the hard work. And I guess you could even say put Lincoln through all the trials. Does that also mean that he'll probably benefit before others? Yes.
yeah,
We're going to see changes in Lincoln. We already know that we're going to see those. We know that he's going to grow out of this because it's a new realm and a way to fill in some of the gaps that he already has.
yeah,
And so then others can see. They don't have to just go off of what I tell them
Mhm.
or what you might have to tell them. They can just physically see it because they see my child in the clinic every day when they're picking up their child.
sure.
So a lot of them already know my child. One thing, we have a parent like in our clinic. I was doing an interview one day for one of our RBTs, and one of my parents walked in, sat in the chair next to him in the office, and said, unless you're coming to be part of this family, don't go any further. Because once you're in, this is a family here. So I will say that. We just had a parent event on Monday night. We do a monthly parent training. And every other month, it's a parent training. So it's more educational based on ABA. And we try to get them to invite all the surrounding family around that child because they get their training every week with the BCBA. They go through things. We're telling them daily things about what's going on with their child. But we try to get the family involved in too. Because grandma and grandpa are definitely not in the same, this is all new to them.
Yeah.
And so, and brothers and sisters need to know what to do. Like, why are they doing stuff that I would never do?
Yep.
And then every other month on the opposite side of that, the other month, then we do like pretty much a social. So at both of the events, your kids are taken care of by us. Instead of being in an ABA format, they still go to the back. They still are in the gym. They're playing in the playroom. They're going to the art room and doing projects. But we take all of your kids in. So it's not just the one that's our patient. We take all of your kids. So if you have 5 kids, then we're going to take the other 4 back there too. And it provides the parents an avenue to sit and socialize on those months, even in the educational one, because we just played Jeopardy on Monday. We made our own Jeopardy game. It's still a great social time. We provide food and drinks and everything. And everybody's just able to vent to each other.
Yeah.
We all are going through it.
Yeah.
Some of us have 5-year-olds, some of us have 3-year-olds, some of us have 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
So there's a whole different realm of, I can remember back then, or so
That's
this
so
is what I
cool.
can look forward to maybe, or is this bad that I see that? And do I have to worry about that?
That's so cool.
And so like we had an older mom, she's like, nope, that's probably not what you have to worry about because I got into this late.
Oh,
And so she's like, he had developed a lot of behaviors that just got too far out of control that now I'm trying to find a way. And
Right.
so, and that's another thing about us. We, with the whole Nicole, like I said, they kicked her out at 10. It's not the same for us. We are diagnosis to the age of 18. The only reason we stop at 18 is because insurance says we have to.
jeez.
So insurance at this time cuts off at 18. So hopefully that'll change someday.
Right.
Because like we said, it never goes away.
Yeah.
And even adults can benefit from understanding their behaviors. Maybe not in the same setting, but just providing classes that would be able to help them.
Yeah.
Right now, I send them all to you.
Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Well, golly, this is already smoked by. I guess we got about 3 minutes because I guess you got to get back, Tessa.
Yeah, so I can close up. Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I need to be there with the parents coming in for. So.
Well, I guess what I'll do is I'll say for anyone that's looking for good ABA clinics, go to successonthespectrum.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can read up on Nicole's story. There's even a video with her on there, as well as other information, especially information about autism.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like Justin had said, majority of the locations are in Texas. They got one here, obviously, in the southeastern part of Kansas City, Lee Summit, Missouri, and then you said Detroit.
So Detroit has one. Then New Jersey has a couple.
Okay.
Florida's working on one currently. Georgia has one. Arizona. Then we have a couple that's actually coming to tour our facility. They're opening one in Indiana.
Cool.
And they're actually sped teachers that are getting out of the school system
Oh man,
because they're frustrated.
they're gonna get a whole nother
They're leaving the school system from the
ignition
frustration
of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
they can start doing things their way.
of the 25, 23 out of the 25 are personally affected with autism.
Yeah.
So
Isn't
there's
that-
only 2 that are not personally. One is a doctor that it was an area that was not serviced, and she was like, "You need to go get ABA." There is nowhere to go.
Brilliant.
So she kind of was like, "How much do I have to be there? How much do I need to?" And Nicole's like, "Well, I mean, you can set it up as much as you want to set it up." So she's not personally, but she's still affected because she's telling patients,
She's
"Hey, I think you need to go get a diagnosis."
she's in
Like,
an underserved area.
Yeah, and then
She's
people
helping.
are coming back to her like, "What do I do now?"
Yep.
And she's like, "Well, you need to," but I guess there is none.
There's
So
nothing.
so she did that. I can't actually remember which one that's her clinic, but I think she's another clinic in Texas. But like I said, most of us are somehow personally affected.
Which is the way it should be.
Yeah.
In my mind, because yes, these are franchises and yes, they're businesses, but no better person to have running the place than obviously a parent who is affected by it.
Yeah.
Because you're whether it's been 3 years or 30, you're in the game and you know it. And every 12 months, this game can change because the kids have new challenges. They have new milestones to be met, or COVID, or whatever it is.
The body's physical changes in them.
Yes.
There's a whole new dilemma of behaviors come out.
Yeah.
So just like we see neurotypical 13-year-olds
Dealing
change, you're going to see the same in an autism child.
Yep.
So
They'll
just because they're on the spectrum doesn't mean that they're going to just somehow magically escape around
No.
teenage years. So
Yeah, they'll still hit their teenage years and they'll still smell and. All right.
I'm not there yet. Mine are all 11 and younger, but
Yes. Yeah. I'm not looking forward to that. We got 2 teens in the office this week and like their feet stink, their armpits stink. And so anyway, well, is there anything else you want to say?
the same as yours though. I would tell anybody who is an ABA client that they should be looking to functional neurology as well.
Yeah. Which I haven't talked
Because
about.
not a lot of people tell them that.
Yeah.
And I'm probably pretty safe to say I'm the only ABA company that probably tells them that. I don't know of a lot who send to a functional neurologist.
You know, there isn't a lot that I know in the area. And unfortunately, we know who those are. But as far as talking about functional neurology and how it fits into your kids' care, I got other episodes I got to do about this, but absolutely,
Sure.
you can, if you start Googling functional neurology or look up the International Association of Functional Neurosciences and Rehabilitation, or IAFNR, or the American Board of Chiropractic Neurology, you can find a Func Neuro in your area. Whether you are a behavioral therapist, OT, PT, and you're looking for other people to help out your patients. So, or if you are a licensed professional, IAFNR, International Association of Functional Neurosciences and Rehabilitation, teaches everyone, which is why we're big on collaboration, because I actually learned from behavioral therapists. I learned from psychologists. I learned from DOs. I learned from PTs, OTs. I learned from DCs. I learned from them all as part of my training. So we are taught to start collaborating, because unfortunately, these children, as they get diagnosed, your boy diagnosed a couple of years ago is, yes, the same diagnosis, but I will argue your boy will have more health issues than 10 years ago. Because unfortunately, our children and people in our country, for the most part, are only getting sicker. So it takes a village.
Yeah, for sure.
It does.
And trying to do it alone or say that you can do it alone is an old way of thinking.
Oh, yeah. It makes it easier.
Which is why we're excited to start this next week with Lincoln, because it's going to be a lot, and then we're all there together to be able to formulate even more plans together.
Yeah,
So,
that'll be cool. We'll have to have you come back and talk about
for
things
sure.
that occur after. So,
Well, then we can maybe bring Nicole. She can tell you, like, from the franchise point of view.
that'd be sweet.
Because I don't know her whole backstory. I only know some,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, we'll send her this
So-
link. Nicole, if you're watching or listening, I'd love to have you on. Just talk about her story and talk about SOS in general. So, all right, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening. Dr. Alex Nelson here. We got Justin Long out of Lee Summit, Missouri.
The Dr. Alex Show is hosted by myself, a nerd, Dr. Alex Nelson. I'm a chiropractor, board certified in functional neurology and childhood neurodevelopmental disorders. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or most any of your other favorite podcast apps. The Dr. Alex Show is a production of Fredcasts. Think, speak,